So we're here to talk music. You know how it goes, and I'm sure you two have a lot of experience with music and have had a great career in the world of advertising. And we'd love to see just learn more about how you guys started in advertising, like what led you to pursue a career in advertising, and just start there. Just share that story with everyone. Um, I don't know if Gordy, you want to go first or Brian?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know, like advertising specifically, kind of like, I don't want to say stumbled my way there, but like, I was actually like, I feel like I chose the direction early-ish. Like, I started with, I was always in like art classes, stuff like that, and always had just like enjoyed pop culture stuff. Um, Went to college, did more of the graphic design front type of thing, and always kind of had like a weird instinct to commercialize it versus just doing. I wasn't like an artist per se, I was never that. I'm not talented enough to be that. So I'm like, oh, well, this makes sense to me. Commercials, television, entertainment world makes sense to me. Got a job at it was called Draft Worldwide before it merged with Draft FCB, and I was making garbagey coupon wobbler things for Kellogg's customer specific marketing. And then they merged with FCB, and like I just saw like more of the advertising side and just kind of scratched and clawed my way, annoyed people until they gave me briefs to work on, and then ended up, following the path to where we are now.
And
Yeah,
and when did you guys decide to team up, or where did you guys meet along the way?
I had my own path and kind of stumbled my way to FCB, and we had both started working alongside this kind of ACD team separately. And they were like, "Hey, you guys should work together. You'd be great partners." So they kind of pushed us together.
So
My
like the
path was
ACDs,
different.
the ACDs pushed you guys to like to team up and
Yeah, yeah. They were like a really tight team and kind of modeled for us a little bit what a team could be like, and we both kind of saw them and learned from them, and they kind of mentored us. And
yeah. And was there a moment there like in the early days where you said to yourselves like that like you knew it was going to be a long run? Or did you just go with the flow? Like did you sense something special at early stages?
yeah, it felt like we hit the ground running. Like once we linked up, we kind of just like it just clicked, and then we went with the flow. But like it felt, yeah, like it just felt right, and we had a good back and forth. Obviously there's learning curves to working with someone new and all that stuff, but I think the way, like to Brian's point of the way we were raised by this, I guess, raised by this other creative team, it created kind of this flow of like almost more of like a writer's room mentality, more of a flat level where everybody kind of has equal say and can, you know, kick the tires on everything, and just like it's just everything's kind of fair game. And it was just more fun that way than working in a silo and then going up the ladder. We try to keep it all flat and open and just, kind of a little bit of jazz with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, no, I mean for sure. And I mean 18 you guys been together 18 plus years, right? And that's wild in this industry. What's the secret sauce?
I don't, it's a relationship. Like we just really got to know each other over the years, in this unique, weird way that this industry, kind of teaches you to work with other people, just working closely and kind of understanding each other's instincts and developing like trust where like we trust each other's instincts. Um, and it's just a relationship that's just built over the years. It's withstood multiple cross-country moves, multiple agencies, layoffs, starting our own kind of thing. So it's really been kind of a journey that we both like learned a lot individually about every aspect of the industry and ourselves, and then kind of grown as a duo.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's I'm assuming it's also like knowing, what are my strengths, what are your strengths, what is something that maybe you're better at than I am, right? Like Brian, I understand you have a music background, right? A cappella group. Uh,
Yeah.
maybe you can show us some tunes here. No, I'm just kidding. Um, but yeah, I mean, right? Like that's something I'm sure that you recognize early, and
Yeah,
move
I mean
forward
that
with
was
that.
kind of that was weirdly that was kind of my path into advertising too, where I had been doing singing like and had done like theater and musical theater in like high school and singing and then in college I was kind of doing the singing group and more focused on that than my academics and stuff and performing and touring. And then I was like, I need a career that's more steady or stable than just being an artist and going from job to job like that or whatever. And I thought that advertising was like, oh, this makes sense because it's like art and business. And then I was like, oh, what can I do though in that? And so I started on the account side, um, and was a terrible account person, but weirdly like failed up, I think, just because I was a guy who was on the account side. And at the time, there weren't a lot of guys, so they kept kind of promoting me. But then I put a portfolio together and started writing, and then it didn't involve music at that point, really. But I was like, okay, this I feel like I'm really motivated to do. And as I sort of got into it and like saw that the music element of it and got to that point where I'm actually like, oh, I'm doing like radio spots and producing them and choosing what the soundtrack is, or like pitching like a musically related idea, which we did kind of off the bat. Then I was like, oh, I've got all these skills that I can be really involved in here and can really, add to, how we make music a part of things. Um, Probably in a way that really annoyed the music companies and the composers that we were working with. Where they were probably just like, shut up, let us stay in the lane, let us do our job.
Yeah. No, that's great to hear. And like, I mean, you know, jingles, brand music, like that's like, high attention stuff. Like, people pay attention these days when they hear something they like, right? And I think, you two have done a good job of incorporating that into the work that you're doing. Um, when you're building a concept, are you having, conversation about music early? Is or does it vary on project to project? But or what's your thoughts on that?
It kind of all depends on the idea, right? It's not like, oh, how are we going to infuse music into this? It's more like, what's the idea? And if it's inherent to the concept, then it's a different story. Um, it's almost a coin flip, 50-50 of like depending on the assignment. Like one we're working now, it's not an afterthought, but it's like, oh, we'll have something that kind of moves the picture along. We kind of have a vague idea of the tone of it, but we're not like thinking about it every step of the process. Where on the flip side, where it was like when we did, say, for example, the Duke Cannon work, where there's a jingle at the end and a vibe to it, that was constantly on our brain, and we kind of crafted that jingle early on, even before executing the film, just to know that, like, okay, this is the tone, this is the vibe we're going for, this is the world we're living in.
Yeah, part of that Duke Cannon thing was early on. We knew as we were getting into execution that like we wanted these executions to feel like relics, like authentic relics of ads from the 70s or 80s. And Duke Cannon, this men's grooming product, soaps and deodorants and stuff. The idea was earn your clean, where it's like it's all about kind of hard work, um, and guys who kind of earn the right to use this product. So the shower and the soap or the deodorant was kind of like the reward for a long day's work, which sent our minds back to like old beer commercials, where at the end of the day you'd crack open a beer, and all of those were like music driven and had a lot of them did have jingles at the end that had a really unique sound. So we knew early on, like we want to create a jingle that's in the vein of this old work and want it to feel like it's a relic from that time period. And so spent a lot of time early on kind of crafting that jingle and ensuring that it was kind of an earworm a bit and something that didn't
Yeah.
annoy but like stuck in your head and you wanted to hear like over and over again.
Yeah, and I'm curious, like when it comes to, because a lot of times you have these great concepts, right? And you put together these great music briefs, campaigns, and you know, pitching those to clients and convincing clients to care about music, to spend on music. What do you think of that process? Can that be challenging at times? That agency to client relationship, and specifically the role of music, and sometimes because that we've heard that a lot of times there's clients that really care about music. There's clients that sometimes do not prioritize it enough. So from your experience, like when it comes to music and pitching to clients, what's your take?
I think in general like it depends what we're pitching, but like jingles in general aren't a hard sell. Like the idea of a jingle, like a lot of clients love the fact that, like wanting to create some sort of mnemonic that they could build equity in. So like I guess the harder part is when to use it and what it should be. Like when is it appropriate and when is it not? Um, I don't think we've had clients who are, you know, too in the weeds on music, with the exception of sometimes when we try to push it to a place to make it a little bit more quirky or edgy or pop a little bit more. The one that comes to mind for me is the Huggies song that we did, where the concept was about kind of celebrating all of the shapes and sizes of baby butts that are out there, because Huggies diapers are uniquely shaped with like this curved shape, just like underwear, where fits it's curved to fit your body. And other diapers are weirdly rectangular shaped. People didn't really know this. It's been that way for decades, and Huggies has even talked about it, but it hasn't really broken through people's minds that this product difference exists. So we thought like a music driven thing to kind of hammer that home in this fun, charming way would be a powerful way to finally break through with this message. And so we developed this song that kind of celebrates all the different shapes and sizes of baby butts. And the song could have gone a million different ways. Like the first step was working with, you know, composers to write the tune, and that it was like this upbeat song that again like wasn't too annoying, that had energy to it, but that also was charming and didn't sound like too cool or like Huggies was trying to be cool, because at the end of the day it was meant to be kind of fun and funny. And then the next step was like casting the voice, and this is where it got a little bit more difficult, where we felt like the voice needed to have a little something extra to it, a little bit of extra sauce or quirk to it, and not be kind of your typical voice. Because it could easily become kind of this, just fade into the world of just hip, cool sounding music that you expect to hear in television commercials. And so the
Yeah,
voice we landed on was kind of this German East or European-ish accent. That at first it took a little bit of convincing. We had to kind of walk them there that this was the way to do it, but ultimately it was the voice, I think, that kind of helped make that commercial stand out and grab people's ears.
for sure. And that's like a great example of a campaign that just from early days to like launch, right? It's just everything was you were able to execute, and then the client, right? Like even if at the beginning you had trouble pitching and getting them to buy in, right? Like that's like a great success story, for sure. And like you mentioned
Yeah, and then
jingles, like yeah, go for it,
I was gonna say
Gordy.
the song, yeah, the song was inherent to that idea and execution was to create a song, a butt song, a baby butt song. That was the idea a bit at its core, is celebrating all the different shapes and sizes of the butt, babies and their butts, and doing kind of like an anthemic song, but in a fun, weird way. Like it's one of the kickoff was like Major Lazer Bubble Butt song, which is like absurd song, but like doing that for babies. And so like what's our weird twist on it? And we leaned into more like Euro EDM kind of vibe, is what we kind of pitched. And then as we got, samples back, when they started to hear it, it started to scare them. And then they were asking for, more softer and bubbly versions and more Bruno Marsy vibes. And that's where it started to make us feel uncomfortable that we were rounding the corners a bit too much. But ultimately found, a happy medium and ended up being a lot of fun. And there's like a 2-minute version on Spotify that still exists.
Yeah, no, I mean, jingles are so powerful. Like I saw somewhere like they lift like 33% more brand recall. It's insane. And people always say like they remember jingles from their childhood, right? So, you know, maybe this Huggies campaign, people remember that, uh, for a long time, right? So there's a lot of power in that for sure. It's a great example. Um, yeah. So, moving forward, like there's so many ways to start a campaign, right, with music, right? And and you can go with stock music, you can go with original music, right? You can do it with, independent artists, you can go with like real established uh artists, right? So like there's many ways to go about it. Um, and a lot of times you also have campaigns like online, social, you have, more campaigns with more reach, TV broadcast, streaming, OTT, right? Different medias, right? And a lot of times, people when the campaign is small, they tend to go with stock music, right? Or and that's when they cut the wings out of the possibilities, or I don't know if that makes sense, but have you seen sort of like a trend there? Where if the campaign for the spot is big, obviously budget's going to be bigger than you spend more on music. But a lot of times we've seen that even social campaigns where they're organic, low shelf life, it also calls for a good investment in music, and if done right, it can just pay so many dividends. What do you think of that about like because we see that happen a lot in advertising. Um, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
It comes down to budget, really.
Yeah.
What we've got the budget for, and then like what the idea is. Like if it's a music driven idea, like early on, that's you know what that's decided. And if it's music, if it's music driven, we're gonna invest more in creating that music and probably compose it or probably, work with an artist in some way. And if it's
Yeah.
not, and if it's just more of like a background role, then, we'll find the right vibe for it. And then again, like it's a budget question, might work with composers to create that, replicate a vibe, or, I think I guess the goal with stock is like trying to find stock that doesn't sound like stock. Um, so trying to find like more interesting or a little bit more quirky type stock, which we've tried to do for certain things.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I mean, there's so many artists out there that are now they're creators in their own right. They have their own careers, and a lot of times, like you approach them, and they can become a fan of the brand, right? And so even if the campaign is not, doesn't have the biggest dollars tied to it, maybe the artist is a fan, they can participate, and work with the art and do a brand partnership that way. Like, a sync license, right, is the first brand to artist relationship, right? When a brand licenses a song from an artist. So, but a lot of times that's how things can happen. So even if budgets are not the best, but the artist is a true believer in the campaign, it can just bring so many good things, right? And then the artist can get excited. They can post it on their socials, right? Um, so there's a lot there, and nowadays, like I mean, organic content is in many ways outperforming paid content these days. So there's something to think about there, because people limit the duration of the campaign to the amount of spend, right? uh so it's just something that's so interesting to me.
Totally. Yeah. And I think in any case, you're always better off with something that's scored or custom, and we try to find ways to always do something to the music. Even if we use stock, let's try and find the weird specific section or manipulate it in some capacity. Or, we have, friends that kind of compose on, they're not necessarily a big music house working with more up and comers direct to the source of composers, who can create stuff that gets what's in our brains on paper quick or in audio quick.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and in this industry, obviously stock gets mentioned so much. And like people define stock music so differently. Like what is stock music, right? So um and nowadays like, like the industry has changed so much in the last, 5, and then if you go back 10 years, nowadays there's like more music companies now more than ever. And working in different ways. So um it's like stock music has the role of something quick, right? But there's just so much more than stock right out there. And even if it just plays a background role, right? Like I think that's like one of the most common misconceptions. If music doesn't play like a pivotal role and just helps just add that energy to the spot in the background, um it's good to not be limited to like royalty free. And it's like you say, Brian, like what's something that has the purpose of stock, but that doesn't sound like stock, right? And that's where I think working with, different artists out there, producers out there, um, can be so meaningful, for brands and a great opportunity. Plus, they get to contribute to their careers, and that's like super positive.
Yeah, we've made a lot of friends over the years who are composers, just working in various capacities, who we've turned to. Um, and again, like a range, they're just musicians who have all sorts of different projects going, who we've turned to usually with like quick, tight timelines. And in some cases it's like, oh, this needs something. Like, what would you do with this? And they'll compose something for it. In other cases, it's like we have an idea in mind that's kind of specific, or we give them references, and in very clear direction, and they are able to like quickly create that vibe for us out of nothing, and always love going that route. And in general, like not working through a traditional path of getting to the best possible score, especially in the case of like lower budgets and like really quick turn work. So that's for us, that's always a more ideal path to turn to, with stock being just kind of a last resort, you know?
Yeah. 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 Interesting. Um, if you like obviously you've had 18 plus years and I'm sure you've learned a lot along the way. If you were to give yourselves an advice, like your younger selves, when you were back like early days, about how best to integrate music into your campaigns, like, you know and give advice to younger creators, right? Like how best to integrate music into creative, like what's the best way to go about it, what's the best way to get peers to buy in. What are some tips that you can give out to your younger selves or to other young aspiring creative directors?
Don't try to force it is for one. Don't wedge it just because. Don't I don't, I mean, because a lot of people lean on it as a crutch also. Don't do that. Idea comes first, number one. And then, you know, if music is inherent to it, great. And try to kind of get ahead of the selling factor. Don't, like especially if it's important, uh, element of the film or execution, make sure that like everybody's on board and try to get them sold in on the vibe. It's hard, especially, like for me personally, because I can't even carry a tune. fortunately, Brian has that ability. I could say the things and like reference to types of music, and I use him as like he's like my chatbot GPT music person. I just say the diarrhea at the wall of words of what type of music I want, and he kind of says like, "Oh, put it as a G note," all that stuff, in that exact way too. But if you can find someone who can, like even if it's in a lo-fi way, demonstrate it in the room. Music helps sell ideas in the room. It's theater, you know. But again, don't make sure that it's integral to the idea and it's not something that sells a less good idea because you did the theater, I guess.
Yeah, and you mentioned like, idea first, right? And music is very powerful these days, right? And people know that. And so, you also said don't force it. So it is happening where people just force the issue on something, and then that's where like, you start getting into, you start licensing a very recognizable song. Everyone knows it, but it just doesn't do the job, right? It doesn't get the point across. So 100%. 100%. Brian, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, those are all really good points. I think, and then bringing up even just the fact that the two perspectives that we both bring to it, I think are really good because um, I'm kind of more in the weeds and more specific, and I hear things differently than Gordy does. And but the way that Gordy hears it is just as valuable, if not more, than the way I hear it, music, because he hears it just from that like a much higher level. The way anyone listening to it or encountering it who's not thinking about it when, people are scrolling their phones or whatever, they're not, thinking about it the way that I am or whatever. They're just, you know, we need to grab their attention. And so having that super high level reaction to music is very important, just emotional reaction. But like I also think it's important to get on the weeds on it too. And that's advice that I would give. Like don't hold back because a lot of times I find myself like I do feel like a lot of music or the way music is used in advertising is often like just too big. And that seems to be the tendency with a lot of times when we start even with composers or music houses or whoever we're working with, it becomes they often go really big, or a lot of even like library tracks and all that feel very big. And there's like a lot of power in sparseness, and there's a lot of power in being very selective about how it's used. And when you only have a certain amount of time to use music to get people's attention, like there is a certain art and nuance to that. And um, it's okay to kind of get in there and help craft that with the composers and find kind of that right balance. And I
Yeah.
enjoy doing it.
Yeah, no, I can tell. I can tell that you love that process, and then Gordy's a good filter, to the like on what the how the consumer perceives it, right? That's a good balance to have. That's good balance in the partnership. Yeah, I would also add like, in advertising, there's like so many crazy timelines, and you're always working on revisions, and you're working on option A, then option B comes along, then you pitch the client wants to pursue a different direction. And so that's why the power of relationships is so important. So having, people that you can count on, because I think, reliable, trust, those are two values uh that are so important in our industry, because you always have to do work and do work on time and present on time, and you're always running. And that's why having different partners that you can rely on to help carry out the vision of the campaign, help execute, and present to client and do different revisions and rounds of feedback, right? That's so important. And so like surrounding, right, yourself with good partners, right, is very underrated. And I feel that a lot of times young creatives um limit themselves to just one or two, or which can be fine, but it's always good to have options based on where the creative might go.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think too, like it's always good when, you know, music kind of catches you off guard a little bit. Like it because there's so there music is used so often in commercials that certain sounds and certain styles are slightly cliche to advertising. Sometimes that's the idea and you want to lean into that clichéness. Other times you don't and you want it to add something a little bit more unique or just add something in general, add another layer, another dimension to the work. And so that's when things get more interesting when you explore and get a little bit weird and don't just um it's that sometimes that takes a little bit to find like what that right vibe is that doesn't feel like it's super expected or too commercially. Um, but and again, doesn't depending on the role, the music doesn't distract from the story or the idea that you're trying to tell, but still adds like another dimension, helps move it along, but also, grabs your ear a little bit.
Yeah. No, that's well said for sure. Um, yeah. Our team was in like our team was in Cannes last week, and we said like, what is the sound of Cannes? Like, what is that sound? And everyone just it's AI. Like everything is AI. Like all you hear is AI, 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 and there's like an oversaturation of it. And what we're seeing is that it's getting in the way of the creative a lot, and people are sort of like uh have like sort of peer pressure to rely on AI now, right? In a way, which obviously AI is great and can provide a lot of efficiency, and it's a great tool. And when it comes to music, right, like that's a whole topic. And but I'm just curious about that, like just specifically about AI, like what your thoughts are on, because it's sort of like inevitable. Um, just get your thoughts on that.
I like it. Um, at first I was like, oh, fear, like whatever, but like I was ignorance is bliss a bit. Um, I get that I understand it's not a it's not it's a double-edged sword, like it's not ideal because it puts people out of some people out of jobs and does, things that kind of like takes things out of hands, but also gives power to us as creatives who want to just make things fast and experiment and make something different. Um, it can be a powerful tool when used right. Obviously, like when it's used to write an essay for college students or whatever, and you lose a lot of brain power or can't even remember what you wrote, different story. But when it's being used to create, I think more of a visual world, I'm intrigued. But it doesn't take away the necessity for ideas and putting thought into that, of course. In some ways, I think it will fuel ideas. In the regards to music, I don't know it enough yet, but my knee jerk right now is like I don't think it's there yet. It seems like more of a powerful tool visually than audio wise.
Yeah, I like what you said, because obviously idea is king, right? I think it's all about ideas, right? And in a way, like it'll help you experiment faster. In a way, it'll help you like just more speed. And but at the end of the day, like as a creative, like you control your ideas that you present, right? So in a way, I think of AI as not necessarily artificial intelligence, but more like collective intelligence. So it has like, you have a way of having all the information available to you, and it's up to you how you use it. Um, it's just there, right? It's there to assist. It's collective intelligence. That's like the best way I like to think about it. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, no, I agree with all of these things, and it's wild that there's this tool now that we have. Haven't explored it really when it comes to music, but I have explored it actually in terms of like what are music ideas that are in this world, just for idea generation. I think it's a great tool for that, just in general, of just quickly giving you fodder or ideas to try. So I think like, yeah, it could help to serve as exploration in terms of like finding good references. I don't think we have the control over it to nuance it exact or craft it exactly the way we need to yet, but there's definitely a place for it in terms of learning how to use it, to how to find and get using it as a shortcut, basically, to get what you want to inspire humans to create something in
Yeah,
the right way. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, for sure, for sure. And on the music side with AI, it's obviously on the consumer side, there's like great use cases for it. Like if you want to generate an AI song for your wedding video, that's fine. But when it comes to brands relying on AI music, that's so tricky right now, because of all the copyright um, infringement lawsuits and everything going on. It's just such a gray area right now, and people don't know what's going to happen. So brands want to avoid that risk of using AI generated music, because where is the source? Where did the music come from? Like all the AI tools that are generating the music, how are they training the AI? And so like until that is settled, I think Fortune 500 brands are gonna wanna avoid um that legal side, right? But obviously, like I'm a fan of uh relying on AI as a tool to help you craft the work and help you create, right? But at the end of the day, you are the center of the work, and the work comes from you, not from the AI. So plus, like I do feel that there's something that happens when humans get together and decide to work together on something, whether it be like a track and you have a rock band, and there's that magic that cannot be created just the same way as like you created when you're in a room together. Just how like Gordy and Brian get together in a room and start crafting and spitballing, and all of a sudden you stumble into like this amazing idea. And then what do we do to get it done? And that's when you like rely on AI for tips or things, but you are the center of the idea, right? So I think that's just so powerful. And something that I like continue to talk about a bunch.
Yeah, we could very well, I mean, at the rate technology is improving, like we could very well get to a point where AI music sounds like it has a natural life to it, you know? Um, I haven't heard that yet, but I could I could see it coming,
It
where it's where
100% will.
right? Because like
100%.
what it does, what I feel like it does, it currently lacks like the rawness or the imperfections and the things that make like real live music special. I think I again haven't explored it too much, but that point could easily come, and that that will lead to bigger questions with how we're using it. But for now, it's just kind of fascinating to see how quickly it's changing, and I feel like there's a lot we could learn still in terms of how to use it properly and use it in good, productive ways.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about AI forever. It's just something that you can just keep going on circles, right? Um, I think now it's like, where do we go from here? And it's like you have this whole AI thing, but then you have the whole human side. Um, and AI is so early in where it's gonna be. So it's like the two you want to be able to like, decide like, how much AI do you want to do or how much human do you want to do, right? But um that's sort of like where we're at now. Um, is there like some like we always like to end podcasts like going over like music that you like to listen to, or side projects that you guys are working on. Is there anything specific there you want to share?
My music tastes are kind of all over the place. and probably not as current as they used to be, whatever. I feel like everyone kind of normally people get stuck in music that they listen to like at some period of their life, or like, I don't know if it's like their 20s or 30s. But in general, I spark to stuff that has like good raw-ish vocals, or where vocals are a part of it, but like they're not too polished or clean and still have kind of like a live or a rawness to them. So it's stuff like obviously like there's great classic rock that does that. Like I'm heavily influenced by like the Beatles. Um, but then also bands like Fish that incorporate like vocal harmonies. And then spanning through different genres. So like now I enjoy like King Gizzard and the stuff that they're doing, or Tame Impala, where it's a bit more interesting vocal stuff, but spanning different ranges and styles of um music.
Yeah. Not too much auto tune and everything
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
I
What
listen
about
to
you,
whatever
Gordy?
my 5 and 7 year old are listening to. But I mean, I like all music. I don't. I'm very eclectic with my taste. Like you could play any sort of music, and I 9 out of 10 times I'm not like. There's no music that I guess I don't like. I'm anti, and I find interesting stuff in all of it. My knee jerk is hip hop, uh, in general, and I mean, I like like I like Kendrick Lamar, like all the new stuff. I don't say as current as most humans, but anything that's kind of I'll pay attention to it, and I'll listen to it. I'll wherever Pandora. I'm not a Spotify person. It's pathetic. I'm still stuck there. But I go with the flow wherever the Pandora radio takes me with like a
Yeah,
Kendrick Lamar radio, and I'm like, oh yeah, I some of it's hit or miss, but most of it I go with it.
that's good. What can people expect from Quality Meets next on music stuff? You've done great jingles along the way. You've done great work for Huggies. What sort of without divulging all the secrets and everything you got going, but what can people expect next?
Musically, the next thing maybe there's one that's it's a local Chicago iconic uh restaurant, and we're bringing back their kind of retro jingle and reimagining it in many different ways. So that'll be a
That's
fun
cool.
one to
Yeah.
play with.
I love that you're into jingles. It's so powerful. And so underused these days. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, this one in particular is very iconic and has a certain sound to it, and we'll be using it in a very self-aware, kind of fun way that I guess has a lot of fun with it, and it makes a little bit of fun of it, in a good way. So very excited to work on this, and I think it'll be highly enjoyable.
nice. Brian Gordy, this was awesome. Thanks for jamming with us. Really had fun here and excited to share this out with everyone. But thanks so much, and we'll tune in on the work coming out from you guys. But thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Take care.